Have you guys seen this video?
Although karate was born in Okinawa and influenced by China, perhaps it was conceived way earlier in the Philippines.
Today we're going to talk about the Karate Nerd's exploration into the Filipino martial arts and Kali. Hey, what's up? I'm Ken, this is kenfuTV, and each week I release videos in the martial arts, philosophy, technique, training, that sort of thing. And if that's what you're into, welcome, glad you're here. Be sure to subscribe for more, hit that bell if you want notifications when the new videos come out. Share this if you like it and think other people should see it. And be sure to comment below to talk about the Filipino martial arts and karate and how they intertwine. So just a couple of days ago, Jesse Enkamp released this video on the Filipino martial arts and karate and kind of the connection between the two and his curiosity of if there was any link historically to the two arts. And I, for one, am very excited to see him making these connections and drawing these kind of lines. Whether they exist or not is yet to be determined. But one of the things that I really like about what Jesse Enkamp is doing, and if you're not following him, you should be. Go check out his channel. You might agree with his stuff, you might not agree with his stuff, but it's very well done and it's at least a conversation starter and it's gonna get you thinking. But one of the things that I like the most that he's been doing is digging into the history of karate. Specifically, that's his art, that's the art that drives him, and so he's digging in. He's got 2 seasons of a series that he put together of a karate nerd in Okinawa. He's got another one where he did a karate nerd in China, where he's exploring the roots and training with different people and finding people who've been doing the martial arts for a long time and spending time talking to them and training with them to put together connections and to come to a deeper understanding. And I think as martial artists, we need to do that. He's following on the footsteps of people like Hanshi Patrick McCarthy, a noted martial arts historian, and somebody that I definitely think you should be looking at if you're not already. Even if karate and some of these things aren't your art, his work in both the history of the martial arts, which is very valuable regardless of your art, and his work on the habitual acts of physical violence are really important things to expose yourself to and spend time looking at. I feel like Jesse's taken a strong cue from that and is exploring the martial arts and trying to draw these connections to the history, and is even including Hanshi McCarthy in that and having conversations with him to help have a deeper understanding. And so this time he's drawing links to the Filipino martial arts and Kali. In this video he put out, he goes and spends some time with Johan Skalberg and tries to get an understanding of Kali and ask questions and learn a little bit. He says this:
I'm going to learn Kali and see exactly how it compares to traditional karate.
Whoa! And I really hope that he means that and intends that and wants to, besides just this one session. And I'll have a link at the end of the video where he actually released a video of the whole session, or at least most of it. But I'm hoping that this is not the last time that he trains Filipino martial arts and that he is interested in learning it and spending time developing a skill set in it, because I think it will expose him to a number of things. So let's talk about why I'm excited about it. Let's talk about why Ken is excited that Jesse Enkamp, who he's never even met, is studying Kali, or at least spending some time digging into it a little bit. And truly it's because of the connections that I have made personally between the two arts. In fact, this whole shirt, this symbol that I put together for the whole kenfu thing, is a representation of what I do, and that's important because what I have is karate, Kali, and jiu-jitsu. I find this link, karate, Kali, to be very, very strong. When I first started the Kali, I was training with some guys who did Okinawa Kempo, and one of them looked at me and he said, here's where you're gonna learn your karate. He was right. You know, it's that view from another perspective that allows you to understand what you do better, right? To see it from somewhere else and get a better exposure to it. And so I've learned a lot of my karate. A lot of my karate has been influenced by the Filipino martial arts and by Kali because of the fact that there are a lot of things that make sense, a lot of things that overlap. And that's something, if you've followed this channel for a little bit or something, you know that I spend time thinking about that these things are connected for me. They truly are. To me, they're one and the same. There's just a different curriculum, a different direction, a different focus, a different perspective maybe, but training the same stuff, the same intent. In Jesse's video, they spend some time on hubud And hubud is one that if you've done any drilling, I mean, I feel like any martial art, if you do any martial art that has stolen some Eskrima drills, then hubud and Sinawali are probably the drills that you've studied. But I don't mind that, because if nothing else, you're learning some really great drills, and they should parallel with what you're already training. And a little more optimistic, a little more hopeful, maybe you decide that you like this and want to pursue some more and integrate more into what you're doing. But you look at hubud, there's many ways to do it, and many permutations and different weapons and different things, and Jesse does a great job of spending time with Johan going through that and seeing a lot of that. And if you really want to see all the different permutations that they worked, be sure to look at the end of this video for the link to the longer one that Jesse put out of the whole session. Hubud and Sinawali have a very strong connection in my mind, that you have these first moments, right? You have this thing that's happening here. And when you look at the Sinawali is doing the same things. Your Sinawali, your Heaven 6, your Earth 6, your different things. We have both a 3 count, and there's 3 counts and 4 counts, and all these different variations, permutations. Most of them have this basic framework that includes this idea of one following the other and then opening back up. Right, so this would be my Tula Sinawali, or the 3 count Sinawali, is a forehand, a backhand, and then a backhand, which is just 1/2 of the 6 count, which is then from here following with the forehand, the backhand, and the backhand. Once you start doing that, then that puts together, you're right back at the middle, and now this works in conjunction. It just loops and it continues. And that's one of the interesting things about the Filipino martial arts are the flow drills, and the fact that they continue and your reps are maximized, because the times to take a break and reset are just taken out, and you just keep going. And then you learn how to deal with things as things change, or you're challenged, or people do different things. You learn how to break the drill and come back to the drill and explore that skill set, which for all you practical karateka and the people who are interested or discovering practical karate, these ideas of being able to adapt and vary and move in and out of drills is critical. And I think that's something that the Filipino martial arts does really well right from the outset. But when you look at these motions in a karate context, it's something you learned day one. Okay, you come across, right, with this forehand, follow with this backhand, and then you continue. One of the first techniques you ever learn is uchuke, right? I pass, I open with my backhand, and then maybe I punch, right? Or something. I follow up with some kind of counter. That could be here, and that could be sotoke, that could be shuto, that could be different things that you could do. But this motion, and most people want to see how does this here basically have this part, and they want to take this part out, but it's there. It's there, and especially if you've ever been surprised by somebody hitting really quickly while this hand is occupied, and you hit with this one, and here, then that is the reason for this position. It can also be the way you're grabbing or doing different things. And that's the beginnings of this Sinawali. This is the beginnings of hubud and how this works. This whole idea of Sinawali coming from the outside and working through, which maybe you're moving to the outside, maybe you're moving to the inside. And then this idea of this hubud being more from what we would call a switch, where you're moving from the inside to the outside and continuing. I open and here, right? Position is the same. One position, follow position, continue. Now, did I enter in this way or this way to get there? I could enter here and get there, or I could enter here and get there. But the point is, if you freeze frame, you end up with this and then this. And there is your basic uchuke. And I feel very strongly that there's a strong connection, even in just that one motion. And really, when you look at your shutoke works the same way. You've got this hand, it is doing something. Grabbing, moving, trapping, whatever. Uchuke, shutoke are very similar. They're I wouldn't even call them cousins, they're siblings. They're strongly connected techniques that are probably some of the most practical and useful techniques that you learn, and you learn them day one. As far as the Filipino martial arts, one of the reasons that I've been drawn to it, one of the things that I love the most about it, is its training methodology. The fact that whereas karate has a strong this, then this, then this, and everything builds, which is good, but you learn a certain set of things, and then you move to another set, and there's a lot of, especially the more traditional, or even the more or the less practical in some cases, then that building is done somewhat arbitrarily. You need to learn these set of techniques, and you need to learn this kata, and then you need to learn this set of self-defense out of those kata, and then you need to learn these techniques, and then these kata, and then these, and it continues and continues and continues. Filipino martial arts just approaches it differently, and the thing that I'm seeing in the practical karate world is stuff that kind of matches more of this philosophy of we're going to basically attack certain types of ideas. For the Filipino martial arts, the first thing you're going to see is angles. Okay, if a technique comes at me, if something happens to me from this angle, I'm going to deal with it in this way. These are the ways that I can deal with that. And I'm going to define the angles that I look at, which is diagonals and horizontals and verticals and thrusting or straightforward angles. We're going to define some lines, the high line and the low line, and maybe the midline, depending on what you're doing. And they're like, cool, okay, we're done. Here we've established kind of the baseline of that. We've looked at the relationship to it. You can be to the inside of it. You can be to the outside of it. You can use the same side hand. You can use the opposite side hand. You can follow one with the other. You can follow here. But really, there's just permutations of the basics. So here's your basics. And let's look at 1,000 different ways to train the same basic thing until you have this creative ability to adapt to whatever's happening and just do. One of the things that Jesse shows in the video, or I should say, he shows it in the video himself, but Johan demonstrates or teaches to him in the video. Credit where credit is due there, is what I would refer to, or what we refer to in our art as translations. Things going from a double stick to a single stick to a stick and a dagger to two daggers to a stick and an empty hand to a dagger and an empty hand to just empty hand altogether. All of these different variations we call translations of the same movement. And usually the technique or the skill doesn't change. It's just what are the tools, and because of the tools, what is the range and how did the range change? This is such an excellent training methodology, something that I really, really like about the way that the Filipino martial arts are trained, is once you've established the baseline, there's no confusion as to whether or not you're learning something new and how to absorb that new information. With karate, sometimes the way things are approached, especially in a more traditional school, you go from one thing to another thing, and just the way they're described or the way they're approached might make them feel totally separate from each other. And then it takes time and experience to see how they're similar or how they're the same. There's a strong focus in the Filipino martial arts to not do that, to just directly draw the lines of how these things are connected to each other and how you're actually applying the same skill instead of learning a new skill. You're just learning a new way to apply that skill or approach that skill. And I really like that because it teaches the student to teach themselves. Some people are scared by that because then they feel like that could make them as a teacher not have value. Guess what? Newsflash, you do. You do have value. The ability to process and pass experience and the ability to talk through things and answer questions and help guide is what you're there for. And to test and to challenge and to push people the right way and to help them see the way they need to go. Your knowledge is not the reason you're there. Exactly. The possession of that knowledge and thereby having a fear of passing that knowledge to someone else because then they could go somewhere else and leave you. That's not it. The knowledge that you have and the skill and ability and the experience that you have that helps process and understand and guide the growth of a person is it. That's the real thing. That's why people need you. That's what you're there for. So don't be afraid to allow a student to learn how to teach themselves, because that doesn't mean that they're going to just jump up and go somewhere else and start just teaching themselves and don't need you. If you do this, they're probably going to process the fact that you doing that had value and that you actually just care about what they're learning and their ability to grow and develop. And that's what you need to do. That's what we all need to do. The more we keep things secret and try to hold them to ourselves, the more we don't allow the expansion of the art and the growth of the individual. And we need those things. We need them. Anyway, I could go on for this for a long time. Filipino martial arts, karate, jiu-jitsu, the jujutsu and the jujitsu, all of these things and their connection, that's the path that I'm on. That's specifically the path that I'm on and what I'm looking at, and I love it. Seeing Jesse Enkamp heading this direction is really cool and exciting for me because his series on the Karate Nerd in Okinawa and the Karate Nerd in China is really well done and very, very enjoyable to watch and entertaining and informational. Really great stuff. So Jesse, if you're watching, I'm first on the list for your Kickstarter for Karate Nerd in the Philippines if you do that, and I hope that you do. And if you're watching this video, I hope that you also go support Jesse and his endeavors in this, because we all learn together, and we've got to recognize that he has resources and connections that are allowing him to go further than maybe we are individually, and we can all grow together if we support each other on these things. So that's it today. Do you train Filipino martial arts? Is that your art? Is that an art that you train in conjunction with your karate or your jiu-jitsu or whatever? Tell me about it. Tell me what your connections are and how you see these things collaborating and combining into what you do. Drop me some comments and tell me about your experiences and how these go together. If you like this channel, you like what I'm doing, you want to subscribe, you can do that right here. Here's a playlist of videos like this right here. Here's a couple more that you might like. This one being Jesse's whole training session with Johan Skalberg. Don't forget, if you want to support this channel, you can go grab one of these kenfu shirts, and the link's down in the description. I'll catch you in the next one.